When I was a kid, we had this wonderful thing called radio. And I remember the transition of radio going from AM and then eventually into FM. And FM has been around since what, the 20s, technically speaking, but never really caught on until like the 60s or 70s for more long term AOR, album oriented rock, long form stuff like that. And there was this transition, this wonderful transition from AM radio with puking, cousin Brucey, which is fine, but kind of like the Al Sleet, wonderful wino, that prototypical, almost, you know, prototypical radio. And then FM got a little bit more dangerous. It was interesting. There was Underground Railroad, and there was more album oriented rock, long form. The joke in radio used to be AOR. It means all over the road. And it took more of a subversive tone because of the voice, because of the sound. Disc jockeys would modulate more and they would really crank it up. So you would hear this deep basso profundo, which people still do. And you can hear it on people who've just discovered processing. Okay. Then it kind of got interesting. Back to AM, there was talk radio. And talk radio was kind of benign. It was there, really didn't come into its own. There was local talk, sports talk, neighborhood talk, swap meets, local stuff. It was okay because radio was tame. It was pretty tame in terms of AM talk. And when I got into it, I backed into it as a caller. I'd say right around 80, maybe. Certainly before Rush hit his big time, but right around 80, I started locally in the West Coast. You would call the Tampa Bay, St. Pete, Clearwater, Pinellas, Tampa, that area, which was a great source of talk radio. I got into it from a very brutal point of view. I started to yell at people as a caller and really mix it up and get dangerous. And more kind of started, believe it or not, in South Florida. Neil Rogers and others became. It started to really kind of pick up. We're not really into shock jock yet. That was kind of sort of, Stern, and kudos to him, which is wonderful. But that was of a sexual nature. That shocking to them meant sexual, dirty, whatever. The political stuff from Joe Pine, Bob Grant, that started to pick up steam, and that became what people called now the angry white man. A misnomer, but either way, I'm giving you these labels just to see how this tsunami started and how it came about and where we are today. Rush Limbaugh changed it transformationally. Without a doubt, Rush Limbaugh changed everything. Political talk became so cool and so fascinating and so interesting. The people who had been in radio for the longest time, people who were who were radio types and the like, these folks came along and they said, "Oh, I can do this too." Charlie Gonzo or whoever, these people who worked overnights in some CHR place, all of a sudden said, "I can do radio." Well, you could do radio by virtue of pushing buttons and your voice sounds great, but do you know anything? Wow, you don't have to know anything. Oh, yes, you do. Oh, yes, you do. You got to know something. And then the Rush wannabe was off and running, and it was great for a while until the market became completely saturated. And what people forgot about Rush Limbaugh was that he was a great broadcaster. Okay, jump to current times. Lo and behold, I'd say right around 2000, internet radio, internet speech, before it was streaming, before we had podcasting, it was, my God, it was wonderful. I one time appeared, I was one of the first, this is true, one of the first podcasters to even use that term. And it was a term that was so new that when I one time was at a Talkers magazine symposium talking to professionals in the business, a few of us were asking the question and trying to explain to people, what does podcasting even mean? And it seemed inconceivable from a bunch of people who had been for years in commercial conventional radio. Were saying people are going to buy this. It's just like the argument that cable came along. Remember the 70s? Cable. I'm going to buy TV. Wait a minute. I'm going to buy TV. People thought, well, TV's free. You know, radio's free. Paywalls before they called it a paywall. You see where this is going? Please bear with me. This is this wonderful transition. It got to be terrific. And all of a sudden, out of this brand new, nascent laboratory of opinion and expression came people like Alex Jones. Alex Jones, in his time, at his peak, was transcendental, transformational, sui generis, nonpareil, one of a kind. Absolutely. It was, for lack of a better word, what public access was, sort of, kind of rough and raw and pure, unrefined, but pure. You know, just this unprocessed, perfect kernel of raw truth. And then later on, that picked up. Now, keep in mind what happened. The powers that be never understood what you are watching now. Never saw it coming. Had an idea. Whether its derivation was from DARPA, who knows? We can argue about that left and right. But they didn't understand this. They didn't understand it. They literally, actually, truly did not understand it, did not recognize how important this was, and how critical it was, and how dangerous it was, and how popular it was, and how all of a sudden individuals, citizens, civilians, alternative broadcasters were enabled and emboldened and given the opportunity to, lo and behold, come together for the first time and opine. And right around, I'd say 2000, certainly before September the 11th, 2001, that was when it changed. That's when folks who ran the show at various iterations that didn't even exist then, broadcast, because this wasn't broadcast. It's not FCC. It's not this. What do we do? Who are these people? A lot of these companies were brand new. They didn't know what to do. They provided a platform. I was a part of one of the first, if not the first, internet radio programs or broadcasts called IATA.com. And the only problem it had was that broadband wasn't able to handle it. The actual ability to handle the amount of information at this nascent period of time. Because everybody saw it. Okay, cut to the chase. Somebody said, we've got to do something here. Because now you've got millions of people coming forward, and they are saying some of the most diacritically, the most profoundly, the most existentially, the most transformationally dangerous revisions, recalculations, and recalibrations of what the perceived truth is, that somebody had to say, now, wait a minute, hold it. And you know the rest. You know the rest. So what happens? What do you do? Where is the next return to the informational frontier? Where is the next Wild West, like it was around 2000, before 9/11, before when, and you may not remember this, many of you great people might have been too young at the time, but it was, oh my God. It was right around, remember Napster and LimeWire? They didn't even know how to share music then. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. It was innocent and dangerous. And it was crude and rough. It was like the Ramones. It was punk rock. It was CBGBs of information. And all of a sudden, people said, "Wait a minute! I don't have to be on some corporate-owned statist heritage foundation. I can do my own." Oh my God! And we've been feeling the repercussion of that tsunami ever since. So 10 minutes into this, where do we go now? Where is it now? It's still there. Prediction, future, there's going to be paywall, private informational systems. Sorry, if you don't know this, you're not paying attention. It's you're going to see. You know how people say you can get this version, or you can pay a little extra and get commercial free, and you say, "Wow." And people, by the way, I understand it. There's a professional cheapskate. Let's face it. Some people to be frugal is one thing. To be a cheapskate is another. It's another story completely. And people love to do that. But what they're doing right now is they used to say, if you pay a little bit extra, you'll get it commercial free. Okay. Now it's going to be if you pay something, you'll get the truth free. Because let me tell you what the most important lesson I have learned, and what is the most draconian and the most frightening and the most difficult to the dissemination of free speech. And that is the notion of self-censorship. When you say, can I, should I, is that okay? Is that okay? Does this subject, I mean, if you listen to what people are saying, what some people are finding objectionable in terms of what passes for completely unfiltered and acceptable expression and broadcast of expression, it's basically something that you know and I know toes, reflects, brooks, tolerates, replicates, states, amplifies, reiterates, endorses, ratifies a certain position system and does not deviate from that. Second, you will find that the argument is that First Amendment protections don't really apply because the limitations on speech and the like are being provided for by functions that are privately owned, non-governmental. Okay, and then you get into the notion, and you can argue about informational warfare, and you can waste your time with the usual governmental attempts to hold hearings, to find out who was shadow banned and who was not. Nothing ever happens. You know, and I know there's nothing that ever happens with it. What is the next and what is the necessary is a return to underground. And underground was something that during the 60s, when information became bold, the anarchist cookbook was kind of sort of underground, accepted completely free speech. A textbook that showed you how to kill people and make poisons and do terrible things like that. That was considered, that's okay. That's okay. Harken back to those days when dangerous thought was protected. When in the 60s, when information and underground newspapers were mimeoed. Remember that, kids? Remember that? Remember mimeographs and smelling that? Ask your parents. Remember those days? Okay. That sense of danger, those are coming back. Because the only way, and this is axiomatic, this is without a doubt, the only way that free speech, and more importantly, not just free speech, but this unfettered sense of go, my son, my daughter, my they, go and spread your wings. The only way that ever is going to happen is if you provide something where people can say whatever they want. And the only way that's going to happen is private channels, which 15 minutes into this is now Lionel Nation. Let me tell you what I do on my private channel. for less than the price of a Google a day, 30 cents, 20 something cents, whatever it is. There's three things I do. Number one, I can say what I want. Now, when I say what I want, does that mean that I want to curse? No, but I could if it's necessary. Lionel merch. Christmas is just around the corner. I believe that cursing and coprolalia to an extent and adult speak and expressions are necessary if it's not used as a substitution for wit, if it's not used gratuitously, if it's not used just to shock, if it doesn't become that verbal filler, that hamburger helper, like people are using now all the time, words like literally, hilarious, insane. Insane was a big, they get on to something like that. I think we're past the like. So years ago, remember, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Everybody was, you know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? You just started the sentence. No, I don't know what you're saying. You haven't said anything. Another one too was so-called. And the so-called government. Well, no, it's the government. And the so-called police. No, they're the police. We get into these verbal tics, and well, that is my position on cursing. So if you want to say it, that's fine. It's not the subject matter. What is completely revolutionary, what is the shock jock version of this, to be using those old Howard Stern terms, is the truth. The truth. And the truth is, for the life of me, some of the most innocuous stuff anybody's ever seen. It's not even, how do I say this? I mean, it's not even, it's interesting. It's not that shocking. And it's just merely the ability to say whatever you want. Let me tell you my particular position. I'm a political atheist. I am a registered independent. I am not a right-winger or a left-winger or Republican or Democrat, or anything like that. My current position right now, my current focus, is the elimination politically of this iteration of intellectual, political, and societal tyranny that people call woke, which is not woke. I think the word woke is used too much. And you know, and I know it, if you've listened to me, we're talking about a deliberate, a systematic, and a targeted destruction of our liberties and the rules by people and by claims of people that I never knew existed. And you are seeing new challenges to civil liberties, to biomedical tyranny, biomedical martial law, and you need a place and a means by which you can say what you want. And there are things that are called conspiracy theories, which are translated into true. There are things that I have always believed regarding weather, regarding geoengineering, regarding 9/11, regarding transmissibility of pandemics, the dispatching of certain key political leaders over the years. Whatever. Remember, you only take flack when you're over the target. So when I get close to saying something that appears to be spot on, that's when you're shut down. So we eliminate that by having a private channel, Lionel Nation. Having a private channel, Lionel Nation. Now, that's the first part, is the video. Second is a news story. And the news story can be from a place, even with Elon Musk. There are so many wonderful sites out there that are providing information. By the way, caveat emptor, if something is disinformational, that's up to you. I believe it's something very, very simple. With the exception of anything depicting violence or sexual abuse of children, and children, yeah, that's it. Anything short of that, and the usual libel, slander, whatever, all of those should be allowed 100% unfettered. So I will provide a news story or something. But the third part, which is the most interesting, I think. First and foremost, I am a musicologist. I love the historicity of music. I have an eclectic, a varied, a rather idiosyncratic love of many, many forms of music that do not have any particular name to it. And what I always love to do is to provide maybe either a musician you've never heard of, a song you've never heard of, a style you've never heard of, or the reintroduction and revisitation and reawakening and re-experiencing of somebody you thought you knew. And years ago, I used to love when friends would come over. I say, bring a blank tape, and I would make samplers before we call them samplers. That's the third part. So it's opinion, it is news, and it's music. And that's what I do. And I cordially invite you to join us right now. Follow the form, just this link. Join monthly, join annually, but join us. And then this is for Lionel Media, which is the site where you go to. And then, with all due respect to this format and your wonderful approximations of stark raving truth, the comment sections are beyond anything you've ever seen. The comment sections are just incredible. So what I'm saying to you, my dear friends, is very simply this. I invite you, lionelmedia.com, follow this little link here and join us. And let me talk to you in a way free from, absent, devoid of any risk of violating any rule, misinterpretation of rules, anything that you will see on normal, conventional platforms. It's that simple. What I don't understand, and this is the one that gets me, certain people can say certain things. I've never understood this. If I cannot say X, then this guy should not be able to say X. But this guy or gal or they are able to do it because apparently they have identified or self-identified as someone sympathetic to the cause, perhaps. I don't know. I can't figure this one out. So not only are some people limited from speech, it's inconsistent. All right? That's it. Join us. Follow the link. Let me talk to you in a way without any concern or focus or reference or even lip service to violating some rule that frankly no one can understand. So go right now to lionelmedia.com to subscribe to my uncensored, culturally inappropriate private channel and follow these links that I have here for you. Let me thank you for your time. Thank you for your efforts. Thank you for your attention. And I hope to see you there soon, where you can comment, really comment, as you and as I see fit.